Nestled amidst rolling hills, Crestwood Hills was a sanctuary for the elite. Mansions stood like proud sentinels, their manicured lawns a testament to wealth. Luxury cars, gleaming under the California sun, whispered tales of extravagant lifestyles. Here, amidst the opulence, resided families who held court in the upper echelons of society. Privacy was paramount, guarded by iron gates and towering hedges. Crestwood Hills was a world unto itself, a world where image was everything, and appearances were meticulously crafted. The residents of Crestwood Hills were a breed apart. They were captains of industry, renowned artists, and celebrated philanthropists. Their lives were a tapestry woven with privilege and prestige. Charity galas were social battlegrounds, where designer gowns and million-dollar donations were the norm. Children attended exclusive private schools, their futures paved with golden opportunities. In this rarefied air of wealth and influence, Lacey Whitmore reigned supreme. She was the epitome of Crestwood Hills, a shining example of its extravagant spirit. Lacey Whitmore was the envy of every girl and the desire of every boy in Crestwood Hills. Her father, Gregory Whitmore, was a real estate tycoon, his name synonymous with luxury developments across the globe. Lacey was the apple of his eye, showered with affection and extravagant gifts. She grew up in a world where every whim was catered to, every desire fulfilled with a snap of her perfectly manicured fingers. Her closet was a testament to her father's wealth, overflowing with designer clothes and shoes that would make a fashion editor weep. Her collection of handbags could rival a museum exhibit, each piece worth more than a year's salary for the average person. But Lacey's most prized possessions were her diamonds. Sparkling necklaces, dazzling earrings, and glittering rings adorned her slender fingers, a constant reminder of her privileged status. She wore them like armor, a shield against a world that she believed revolved around her. Lancaster Jewelers was a Crestwood Hills institution. Its elegant displays housed exquisite pieces, coveted by collectors and socialites alike. It was here that Lacey Whitmore decided to grace with her presence one sunny afternoon. She swept into the store, a whirlwind of designer sunglasses and a bored expression. Her entourage of equally entitled friends trailed behind her, their voices echoing through the hushed atmosphere. Lacey's gaze fell upon a stunning diamond bracelet, its brilliance captivating her attention. "I'll take that one," she announced, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at the display case. The saleswoman, a seasoned professional used to dealing with demanding clientele, politely informed Lacey that the bracelet was on hold for another customer. "Do you know who I am?" Lacey scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "My father practically owns this town. Get me the manager." The manager of Lancaster Jewelers was a man who understood the delicate balance between discretion and firmness. He tried to reason with Lacey, explaining that the bracelet was already promised to another customer. But Lacey, fueled by a lifetime of entitlement, refused to listen. Her voice rose, echoing through the store. She demanded to speak to the owner, threatening to shut the place down. The commotion drew the attention of other shoppers, who watched the scene unfold with a mixture of amusement and horror. When the manager refused to back down, Lacey's anger reached a boiling point. She began to hurl insults, her voice laced with venom. Fearing for the safety of his staff and customers, the manager made a difficult decision. He discreetly picked up the phone and dialed 911. When the sirens wailed in the distance, Lacey's face turned pale. She whipped out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen as she frantically dialed her father's number. "Daddy," she cried, her voice trembling, "they're trying to arrest me." But to her astonishment, her father's response was cold and distant. "You've made your bed, Lacey," he said, his voice devoid of sympathy. "Now lie in it." Section 5. Viral Justice. Lacey's meltdown goes public. The arrival of the police sent shockwaves through the usually tranquil Lancaster Jewelers. Customers gasped and whispered among themselves, their eyes glued to the unfolding drama. Lacey, accustomed to getting her way, seemed genuinely surprised by the turn of events. She had expected her father's influence to shield her from any real consequences, but this time, it seemed, the rules didn't apply. As the police officers approached Lacey, a young woman standing nearby stealthily pulled out her phone. With a few quick taps, she began recording the scene, capturing Lacey's meltdown for posterity. The video showed Lacey's face contorted in a mixture of anger and disbelief as the officers read her rights. "Don't you know who my father is?" she shrieked, her voice shrill and desperate. "I'll have your badges for this." The video, uploaded to social media with the caption, "Spoiled rich girl gets taste of reality," quickly went viral. Within hours, Lacey Whitmore's name was trending nationwide, her face plastered across countless news websites and social media feeds. Section 6. The Walls Close In. A Night of Reckoning. The cold, hard reality of the situation hit Lacey like a ton of bricks as she was escorted out of Lancaster Jewelers in handcuffs. The stares of the onlookers burned into her, their whispers like daggers to her ego. Gone was the usual confidence, the air of superiority she wore like a second skin. In its place was fear, raw and undeniable. The ride to the police station was a blur. Lacey sat in the back of the squad car, her mind racing. How could this be happening to her? This wasn't how things were supposed to be. She was Lacey Whitmore, for God's sake. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The holding cell was a far cry from the luxurious confines of her bedroom. The air was thick with the smell of stale sweat and despair. The other occupants, women from all walks of life, eyed her with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. That night, Lacey Whitmore, stripped of her designer clothes and expensive jewelry, faced a truth she had spent a lifetime avoiding. Money and privilege couldn't buy her way out of every situation. Section 7. From Privilege to Public Service. The following weeks were a blur of legal proceedings and public humiliation for Lacey. The video of her arrest had become a viral sensation, turning her into a national punchline. News outlets had a field day, dissecting her every move and scrutinizing her family's wealth. Social media was abuzz with memes and hashtags mocking her sense of entitlement. The court of public opinion had found her guilty, and the verdict was swift and brutal. Her father, true to his word, refused to intervene. He hired the best lawyers money could buy, but their efforts were futile in the face of overwhelming evidence and public outrage. Lacey was found guilty of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Her punishment, while relatively light, was a far cry from the slap on the wrist she had expected. The judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, sentenced Lacey to 100 hours of community service at a local homeless shelter. Section 8. Humility Found. A Glimmer of Change. The first day at the shelter, Lacey arrived with a scowl etched on her face. She was dressed in plain clothes, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, devoid of any makeup. She looked every bit the part of a chastised teenager, a far cry from the entitled princess who had once graced the halls of Crestwood Hills High. Her initial interactions with the shelter residents were awkward and stilted. She spoke little, her eyes darting around the room, taking in her surroundings with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. But as the days turned into weeks, a gradual shift began to take place within Lacey. The stories of the people she met, their struggles, their resilience, chipped away at her carefully constructed walls of privilege. She began to see the world through a different lens, one that wasn't clouded by wealth and entitlement. The experience, while humbling, was also strangely liberating. Section 9. The Price of Excess, a Lesson Learned. By the time Lacey completed her community service, she was a changed person. The experience had stripped away her arrogance, replacing it with a newfound sense of empathy and understanding. She had learned that true happiness wasn't found in designer handbags or expensive jewelry, but in genuine human connection. She began to use her platform to raise awareness about homelessness and social inequality. She donated generously to the shelter, her contributions made anonymously this time. The girl who had once been defined by her wealth and privilege was now finding her voice as an advocate for social change. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. Lacey had learned the hard way that the price of excess was often a loss of perspective. And sometimes, the most valuable lessons in life were learned not in classrooms or boardrooms, but in the most unexpected of places.